Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is, are the Clippers the winners of the trade deadline after getting Rajon Rondo? So that's the topic I want to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Please also make sure you go ahead and hit that notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our videos, because sometimes you may not get the notification if you don't hit the bell. So please make sure you go ahead and do that. So also be on the lookout for our also check out our Dreamerspro Max online sports community. It's a place where you can go and start basketball discussions, chat live during games, go live with us after games, consume original content that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else, and do so many other cool things. So if you guys want to check that out, we have that linked in the description below, and get 7 days of free access. People are beginning to sign up now, and I'm sure a lot of you guys on there are going to be having a lot of fun, especially now that you see the things are getting so interesting in the NBA season. So let me get into this topic here. So we all know since last season, it's been no secret that the Clippers have been in search of a point guard. This has been no secret, right? We knew this last season, but at the end of last season, given the fact that they didn't win in the playoffs, it became an even more glaring issue, right? Because the combination of guards that they had was just not work. It just didn't fit somehow. They had Lou Williams, they had Patrick Beverley, Terrence Mann, and Reggie Jackson. Now, Lou Williams and Patrick Beverley had the longest tenure on the team as far as players that have been there for a long time. I think Lou Williams had been with the Clippers for about 4 years. I think Patrick Beverley 3 or 4 years or so. So these guys had been with the organization for quite some time, right? And I think they had built a kind of following in the fan base, and these guys had been there for a while. But they all had their strengths and weaknesses. If you look at Lou Williams, for example, Lou Williams is the highest scoring player to ever come off the bench in NBA history. I think he has multiple 2 to 3 Sixth Man of the Year awards. So he's a very good scorer. Like he's a great scorer, coming off the bench. The only issue with Lou Williams, although he does play the point guard position, was that he wasn't a very good decision maker with the ball. And he didn't play great defense, right? So the Clippers, you always had to pick your poison with him. You were getting him in the game, and you knew you had him for offense, but on defense, he was going to be a liability. And you saw in the playoffs, teams would always search for him in the pick and roll. The minute you had Lou Williams in the game, late in games, and teams went to that pick and roll and they got that switch, it was barbecue chicken, right? So that was the issue with Lou. He was giving up, you had offense, but he was giving up so much defense, right? So that was the thing. And in most cases, sometimes it was a net loss. If you look at the points he scored versus the points he allowed. So there was an issue with him. Then you had Patrick Beverley, who was their best on the ball defender as a point guard. He was a knockdown 3-point shooter. The only issue with him is he wasn't a very good team. Like, he couldn't run a team very well. He wasn't a guy that was going to get you a lot of assists, and he couldn't score as much. He wasn't really a great scorer, but he was a great emotional leader, and I like Patrick Beverley a lot. And Reggie Jackson was just more of Lou Williams. I think he was just a younger version of Lou Williams, in my opinion. He can play a little bit better defense. And Terrence Mann at the time, I think, was a rookie or a second-year guy, so he wasn't that season. So the Clippers had their strengths and weaknesses. These guys had their strengths and weaknesses. But after losing to the Denver Nuggets, Kawhi Leonard complained that, listen, we need to get smarter guys on this team. We need to get guys that have a higher IQ, guys that know shot clock, game clock, when to run certain plays. Like, you could see it was something he was starving for. And after that series with the Denver Nuggets, it looked like he was the only man. He was a man on an island. Now, he had a terrible Game 7 performance. I mean, it hurts me to say this, my favorite player in the NBA. He had a terrible Game 7, but if you look at the playoff, he carried that team. Paul George he was very inconsistent. Lou Williams didn't show up really. Montrezl Harrell didn't show up really in the bubble, and he was the only consistent thing that they had. And when he just couldn't perform at a high level on that Game 7, they lost, right? Because everything was riding on him. So he really stressed to the organization that, listen, we got to get some smarter guys. We got to get some smarter guys on the team, and the organization listened. In the offseason, they were able to sign Nicholas Batum, who was an under-the-radar acquisition for the team, and then they got Serge Ibaka, who was a former teammate of Kawhi Leonard when he was with the Toronto Raptors when they broke through and won their first NBA title. He was the backup center/power forward for that team, right? So they got some pretty solid players, but everyone knew that Rajon Rondo was the guy that they needed, because Rajon Rondo had just come out. He was just fresh off of an NBA championship last year with the Los Angeles Lakers, and everyone that saw that Laker run knew that Rajon Rondo was the third best player on that team. He made a lot of championship winning plays. All of his numbers went up. Like in the playoffs, he really had a great run for the Lakers last year in the playoffs. If I pull up his numbers here, last year, if we look at his numbers in the playoffs last season, he averaged 8.9 points. He shot 45.5% from the field, 40% from the three, 68% from the free throw line. Got you 4.3 rebounds, but 6.6 assists and 1.4 steals per game. Those are Rajon Rondo's numbers, and he took his productivity to the next level. We all saw that. He was the guy that the Clippers really wanted. He was the guy that Skip Bayless said the Clippers should get. He was the guy that Shannon Sharpe and Nick Wright said, that's the guy that they need. That's the guy that they need. And for whatever reason, the Lakers let him walk because they didn't want to match the number that he wanted. The Atlanta Hawks did. The Clippers really couldn't compete with the number that the Atlanta Hawks put forward. So Rajon Rondo ended up going to the Atlanta Hawks to go be the backup point guard to Trae Young in Atlanta. And they really missed they really missed an opportunity, right? Starting off the season, the Clippers came out looking very good in the first six weeks or so, but over the last 6 weeks in the month of February, they played a lot of forgettable basketball. They were pretty much like, they were only winning about 50% of the games, and it became glaringly obvious that the Clippers really, really desperately needed a good point guard. It was just clear. A lot of the ball handling responsibilities were either we're going through Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Both of them were averaging about 5 assists per game. But you don't want these guys to be your primary ball handlers, your primary decision makers. You want these guys to be finishing plays instead of initiating the offense. And you can see at times it was something that Kawhi Leonard was having issues with, given the fact he was having some late stretches in games. He was having issues getting off his shot. He wasn't playing very well. And I think when you don't have a great organizer that can organize the offense, you're going to have issues on the floor, and it became glaringly obvious that the Clippers needed to go out there and acquire a point guard. Now, throughout the whole trade deadline hysteria, the drama, we had done various videos on potential point guards that can go after, like George Hill, Kyle Lowry, Eric Bledsoe, Lonzo Ball, right? But in all of this, no one even ventured to think of the idea of them possibly landing Rajon Rondo. And we're going to be doing another video on this about how, asking a question about how powerful Kawhi Leonard is, because this is one of these under the radar acquisitions that no one really saw coming. We only heard about this news just yesterday. We were doing a live on our smaller channel, Dreamerspro Short Clips, and some of the members that were watching the video, they were kind of giving me information live because I was kind of following the news as it was happening, trying to be as up to date as possible. And then people started texting, started leaving messages saying, "Listen, they got Rondo." I'm like, Rajon Rondo, where did this news come from? And they were like, no, go check. And it turned out that the Clippers got Rajon Rondo, and in my opinion, with that one move, I believe that the Clippers won the trade deadline, sweepstakes. Let's put it like that. I think they won, right? And some people may say, but what about the Denver Nuggets? The Denver Nuggets got, Aaron Gordon, and they got some key pieces. I understand that Denver definitely got stronger, but here's the reason why I said the Clippers won the trade deadline. Because of all of the teams contending for a championship, right? I think they solved their biggest problem, right? The Denver Nuggets, they already had Nikola Jokic. They already had Jamal Murray. Yeah, they added more scoring length and defense on their team with Aaron Gordon. I forgot the other piece that they were able to acquire. But the Clippers, we all knew that the final missing piece on this team was them having a solid point guard. That we all knew this. Everyone knew this, right? And now with the acquisition of Rajon Rondo and trading away Lou Williams, who I was not a fan of, now all of a sudden they're solid at every single position on this team. There's no weakness you can point to on this team and say, okay, this is a position on this team that this team is having a deficiency from. At this spot, no, there's no position you can point to on the Clippers and say, okay, this is their glaring weakness. I think with Rajon Rondo, they solve so many problems. Number one, you're getting a point guard that's experienced. He's fresh off an NBA championship. He's one of the smartest players to ever play that position, the point guard position. He's a great defender. He's a great leader. He's a vocal leader. He's a guy that can get in a lot of people's faces. I heard one of the analysts on TV mention yesterday a very important point, which is he's one of the few guys that can actually talk to Kawhi Leonard, and Kawhi Leonard will listen because he has championship experience. He has the jewelry to prove it. I think Serge is another guy, but he's one of the other guys, right? He has 2 NBA championships, so he can talk to Kawhi, and Kawhi Kawhi Leonard could listen. Another thing is that he's an extension of the coach on the floor. Now you have a coach as your point guard, basically. He knows all the plays. He knows all of the plays way ahead. I was listening to Tyronn Lue yesterday talk about the acquisition of Rajon Rondo, and he said, this guy is just so smart. He said sometimes he's even too smart for his own good, and sometimes you have to figure out a way to dial him back. So I think the Clippers won the trade deadline by a mile. Of all the teams that are looking to win a championship, I think they improved the most, in my opinion, with the Rajon Rondo acquisition, and I think he gives them exactly what they need: leadership, a floor general, a guy that knows what the hell he's doing. I personally think he's going to start for the team. I don't even think this is a question. I think we all know that Rajon Rondo is an upgrade to Patrick Beverley. I'm not sure if he's just as good as a defender as Patrick Beverley is, but he's a very good defender. So I don't think they're going to lose anything on defense. He has a lot of length, but I definitely think he's going to help organize the offense and take away a lot of the frustration from Kawhi Leonard. Help Kawhi Leonard kind of flourish in the offense. I want to see the effect that he's going to have on Paul George, help him to get easier shots and Ivica Zubac. So for me, listen, I think the Clippers won the trade deadline sweepstakes. This is just my opinion. So what I want to know from you guys is, do you think the Clippers won in the trade and in the trade market, or do you think it's another team? And what do you think Rajon Rondo brings to this team? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Again, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out the next video that we have coming up on the channel. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamerspro, wishing you guys an amazing day and catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.